Okay, so we have to talk about Samira. Samira has seen quite a few ups and downs in the last couple of patches, and the changes are surprisingly complex. Because while it looks like Samira would be strictly nerfed due to the direct adjustments to her kit, she actually gained some massive buffs with the AD carry item update. However, not a lot of people are taking full advantage of Samira's hidden potential. There's a very specific item build that looks super strong on paper, but I haven't talked about it so far because theory hadn't been put into practice. Until now. But first, you have to keep in mind that League of Legends is a game of information, and this goes beyond making correct rune and item choices. Especially for a champion like Samira, who always must fully commit, and sometimes even has to take bold risks in order to make plays, it is absolutely mandatory to keep track of everything. Trying to go all in only to get countered by the opponent's summoner spells, for example, can be game-losing, but this is where today's sponsor Mobalytics comes into play. With the Mobalytics app, you can click the summoner spell icons on this overlay here, and then it simply counts down the remaining cooldown for you. So instead of relying on my memory, I can see with one glance that the enemy's flashes are not ready yet, which means my play here is guaranteed. But tracking summoner spells is just one of many features. The Mobalytics app can do much more. Especially on AD carry, it is easy to miss when exactly the opponents in other lanes reach their big power spikes, since bot laners are naturally behind in levels. With Mobalytics though, I get valuable in-game notifications, which means the app tells me here that Orianna has just unlocked her ultimate, and the same for Rengar shortly after. So even while going back and forth with Neela here, so I have no time to press tab, I still know the potential risks and can plan my next move accordingly. However, these are just the two features I like best about Mobalytics. And whatever you need to up your game, the Mobalytics app got it covered. Import builds, scout every player, and get in-game insights to win more. Download Mobalytics today using my link below. But let's now get back to the secret Samira build, which I consider to be sleeper OP on this champion. In fact, the Korean pro player Baolan, who is a godlike solo queue ADC player, has been testing this build in ranked. But before we analyze his gameplay, I will first show you his exact runes and items so you can see the theory behind it for yourself and also copy it right away if you like. The rune page is fairly standard though, so I won't go into too much detail here. Baolan picks Conqueror, Triumph, Legend Bloodline and Last Stand with Taste of Blood and Treasure Hunter secondary. Conqueror is the best keystone, no surprise. You stack it while also stacking your passive so you get its full benefits when you finally cast your ultimate for perfect synergy. Triumph ensures that even when you take lots of damage after dashing into melee range, you will still have enough health left to make use of your E resets and keep going. Legend Bloodline is a must-have due to Samira's innate synergies with lifesteal, and these synergies are also at the core of Baolan's Samira item build, so stay tuned. Last Stand is Samira's best rune by far in the next row, and picking anything else here would be a rookie mistake. Your aggressive playstyle will always come at the cost of taking lots of damage yourself, so this rune will massively increase your DPS during these clutch fights at low HP. Samira is an inherently snowbally champion, if that's a word, so Treasure Hunter is commonly picked to maximize your reward for participating in all these early skirmishes. Now, Taste of Blood is a rather weird one and also considered a mistake by many high elo Samira players, as I've explained in my other Samira videos. You more commonly see Eyeball Collection here instead, going hand in hand with Treasure Hunter for better snowballing and taking full advantage of Samira's crazy AD scalings. But Baolan apparently wants to be as safe as possible during the lane phase and therefore is willing to sacrifice late game damage for early game sustain. By the way, keep in mind that if you want to have educational League content like this in your personal feed, all you need to do is click the subscribe button. So the new Samira item build is a double lifesteal core, and it takes full advantage of the Bloodthirster buffs. The idea is to go Shield Bow first into Bloodthirster second, stacking lots of lifesteal very early on. And while you might think this would just be the standard build in a different order, keep in mind that Bloodthirster is most commonly bought as a 4th or 5th item, which means in more than 90% of games it is not bought at all. Getting Bloodthirster second is a big deal, and I think it's actually genius. Some of you will remember the old Samira video in which I explained why the rank 1 player at the time also used a Shield Bow and Bloodthirster core. This was before the durability update however, and since then this double lifesteal core had fallen out of favor. But as soon as Bloodthirster received its massive buffs, the old rank 1 build immediately came back to my mind, while everyone else got baited by the new option of Infinity Edge second item. And while Infinity Edge is effectively the same old thing, Bloodthirster truly got one of the biggest upgrades I've ever seen an item receive. Whenever anything in League of Legends gets buffed from multiple angles at once, you should start to worry, because that usually means it is OP now. In Bloodthirster's case, the item is both cheaper and its shield is stronger, making it much more appealing. Also, don't let the lifesteal nerf fool you here. An item that gets cheaper in exchange for some of its stats is still strictly buffed until you reach full build, so outright better in more than 97% of all games. So Bloodthirster got that going for it now, but also comes with a substantially bigger shield. This matters for Samira a lot, since, as I've already mentioned, this champion's playstyle makes her quite vulnerable to opposing damage. Especially enemy burst damage is a big issue for Samira, since when you get one shot, you won't even have the time to apply your lifesteal at all. Burst damage can make Samira entirely useless, but with Shieldbow and Bloodthirster you now have two very strong anti-burst damage items. On top of that, all your relevant damage spells apply lifesteal just like an auto attack would, and therefore Samira is designed to function as a drain tank. Having two lifesteal items allows you to lean into Samira's natural game plan even more heavily, unlocking all the strong synergies with her kit. You essentially have a lot more options than ever before with this Forgotten build, greatly increasing the consistency of your plays. And consistency is the key to succeeding in a chaotic solo queue environment. The rest of the build then continues as you would expect, of course. The more damage you deal, the more value you get from your lifesteal items, so Infinity Edge and the Last Whisper item are always a good follow-up. But let's now finally have a look at the Shieldbow Bloodthirster core in action. Baolan is playing Samira with a Nautilus support in this game, which is of course optimal due to the synergy between Nautilus's knock-up spells and Samira's passive. However, instead of just playing their lane, Baolan and his support are demonstrating a level of dedication and map awareness you rarely see in a solo queue game. Giving an enemy Draven Blitz lane a guaranteed level advantage over you is super scary, but being a true pro player, Baolan knows how important it is to always be there for the team. Also, I always preach how crucial it is to take Samira's E level 1, since it is her best spell by far, and here the extra mobility actually saves Samira's life after the blunder against Blitzcrank. Always get E level 1, it is plain optimal and every good Samira player does it. In any case, while laning with Samira, you have to keep in mind that she is a surprisingly passive champion. Pun not intended, but yes, she is highly explosive once she goes in, but you can actually never create these situations yourself. On Samira, you have to always be patient and wait until one of your allies makes a play on which you can then capitalize with your passive. Once that eventually happens, however, you make quick work of your enemies. Well played by Draven though, using his E to cancel Samira's dash. But precisely because of that game plan, it is even more important that you don't allow the enemy to get an engage on you. This is easier said than done, of course, since the enemy knows what a high priority target you are, yet you can try and use this to your advantage. Please have a close look at Baolan's positioning. You can bet he is already hovering his W key here, hoping that Blitzcrank gets greedy and wastes his hook. But the enemy Blitzcrank isn't stupid. The dynamics in high elo are so interesting. Baolan's bait effectively got counter-baited, but at the end of the day he still got his damage off, which is all that matters. Anyway, we are here to look at the benefits of the lifesteal stacking core, so let's not dwell on the lane phase for too long. During the mid-game, you want to be in the center of the map so you can ideally take advantage of as many of your allies' plays as possible. And as I've said, Samira's follow-ups in melee range are always inherently risky since you are a damage magnet. But while she doesn't have a Bloodthirster shield yet, Samira already got Shieldbow and an additional Vamp Scepter in this situation, so please have a look at what a difference it can make. This time Blitzcrank finally managed to catch her, but thanks to the additional healing, Samira could out-sustain the enemy's burst. You can clearly see how the added consistency provided by the extra lifesteal can help you dealing with the chaos that is solo queue. But let's skip right to the good part. Samira has finished her Bloodthirster now, not only further increasing her lifesteal, but also making burst damage even less effective due to the massive shield. Or in other words, Samira's biggest weakness as a champion is now patched by your item build, which is exactly what items are for. Numbers disadvantage is always a strong indicator that you will lose that fight, but the Shieldbow Bloodthirster core is so synergistic on Samira that Baolan was able to take the all-in regardless. Now after a strong Herald push, blue team is able to convert all these kills into actual objectives, but the game is still far from over. As a result of an overzealous teamfight in which Samira decided to frontline into 4 enemies at once, red team didn't mess around. They crush Samira and win the fight, as blue team doesn't have their most important damage dealer anymore. Yes, the build is very forgiving and allows you to make much more plays than usual, but you cannot go against Samira's inherent game plan. You are a follow-up engaged champion, not a frontline tank. But the good news is that this allows us to see even more of Bloodthirster Samira in action. Look how this time Baolan adamantly follows Samira's design philosophy and hunts down the stunned target. And even when red team makes an effort to protect Draven, Samira still got some tricks up her sleeve. That was truly a perfectly timed stopwatch. A great item to have on Samira at this stage, since it not only serves as an emergency exit, but at the same time upgrades to the highly valuable Guardian Angel. Getting this item reduces variance even more, which means almost nothing can go wrong as long as you stoically play for follow-ups with your passive and don't isolate yourself from your team. With now 3 defensive ADC items in your pocket, even getting outright caught doesn't matter anymore, despite it being a death sentence for pretty much any other AD carry. I am convinced that Shieldbow Bloodthirster is the way to go on this champion due to the massive Bloodthirster buffs, but feel free to let me know if you disagree. And if you want to get the most out of your support's engages when playing Samira, I recommend that you watch my full AD carry lane phase guide by clicking the link on your screen right there.